Welcome to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander. Settle in with a cup of tea, or perhaps something stronger, as we dive into a chilling tale of intrigue and deduction. Today, we're exploring the shadowy docks of 1920s London, in Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery. This is a long one, my friends. Perfect for those cozy evenings when you want to lose yourself in a classic whodunit. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? Is it a foggy night in London or somewhere far across the pond? Chapter 1. The foggy arrival at Chelsea Wharf. Before we plunge into the depths of this tale, allow me to set the scene a bit more vividly. Imagine yourself there, on the banks of the Thames in that crisp autumn of 1925. The river, that ancient vein of London, winds its way through the city like a serpent coiled in slumber, carrying with it the whispers of empires past and secrets yet to be unearthed. Chelsea Wharf, my friends, was no genteel promenade. It was a gritty hub of commerce, where the clamor of industry met the shadows of intrigue. Crates from far-flung corners of the globe, silks from India, spices from the East Indies, and yes, those forbidden treasures from the sands of Egypt, were hoisted ashore by burly men whose faces told stories of hardship and hidden vices. The gas lamps flickered like wary eyes against the encroaching dusk, casting long shadows that danced upon the cobblestones, slick with river mist and the occasional spill of oil. The air was alive with sounds, the groan of wooden hulls straining against their ropes, the distant hoot of a steam whistle signaling a ship's departure, and the muffled voices of dockworkers barking orders in accents from Liverpool to Lahore. It was a place where fortunes could be made in a single shipment, or lost to the depths of the Thames if the tides turned foul. And on this particular evening, the tides were about to turn in ways no one could foresee. Our story centers on Inspector Reginald Mallory, a man whose name struck both respect and chill that seeped from the water like an unspoken warning. The driver, a grizzled fellow with a cap pulled low, muttered something about the fog rolling in and sped off, leaving Mallory alone with the night. He adjusted his bowler hat and scanned the docks, his breath forming faint clouds in the lamplight. "Time to reel them in," he murmured to himself, a habit born of solitary stakeouts. Waiting for him at Pier 7 was Captain Elias Thorne, the master of the SS Meridian, a weathered cargo vessel that had seen better days. Thorne was a man carved from the sea itself, in his 50s, with a face like old leather, etched by salt winds and storms, and a scar running from his left ear to his jaw, a souvenir from a brawl in Singapore, or so the rumors went. He puffed on a pipe, the tobacco smoke mingling with the fog, and eyed Mallory with a mix of reluctance and cunning. "Inspector Mallory," Thorne greeted, his voice gravelly as the riverbed. "You're punctual, I'll give you that. But this fog, it's thicker than pea soup. My crew's on edge, tides wait for no man, and neither do customs officials." Mallory nodded curtly, shaking the captain's calloused hand. "Captain Thorne, your tip-off was timely. Those crates aboard your ship, they bear markings I've seen before. Egyptian glyphs, smuggled past the authorities in Cairo. If Lord Harrington's involved, as my sources suggest, this could dismantle the whole operation." Thorne's eyes flickered at the mention of Harrington. Lord Victor Harrington, a name synonymous with old money and older secrets. A peer of the realm in his early 60s, Harrington owned vast warehouses along the Thames, including one mere stone's throw from the pier. His collection of antiquities was the envy of museums, but whispers abounded. funded by illicit trades, evading taxes and treaties alike. Harrington wasn't present this evening, officially, but his shadow loomed large, his agents handling the day-to-day while he lounged in his Mayfair townhouse or upriver estate.
Complained, her voice a melodic lilt tainted with irritation. She clutched a small handbag, her gloves pristine white against the dock's filth. I insisted on coming because I worry about you, darling. These docks are no place for a gentleman, let alone in this weather. Mallory paused, turning to her with a tight smile. Eliza, your concern is noted, but unnecessary. This is official business. Stay close and speak only when spoken to. In truth, he suspected her motives. Whispers from informants had linked her to Julian Reed, a dashing young artist whose studio overlooked the river in Chelsea. Reed, with his bohemian flair and scandalous paintings, represented everything Mallory was not: freedom, passion, escape. If Eliza sought to warn someone or cover tracks, her presence could be a liability or a clue. As they boarded the deck, the crew parted like waves before a prow. Salt-crusted sailors eyed them warily, their hands rough from hauling ropes. Among the official party was Sergeant Harold Bates, Mallory's right-hand man at the yard. Bates was a bull of a man, broad-shouldered and in his 40s, with a scowl etched permanently into his features. Loyal on the surface, but ambition burned in his eyes. Just last month, Mallory had blocked his promotion, citing a mishandled evidence chain in a prior case. "Sir," Bates grumbled, falling into step with a salute that bordered on sarcasm. "I've got the search warrants and manifests here. Harrington's signature is on 3/4 of these shipments. Sloppy, if you ask me." Mallory took the papers, scanning them under a lantern's glow. "Good work, Bates. Keep your eyes open. Smugglers like these don't operate without inside help." Bates nodded, but his jaw tightened. Ambition could curdle into resentment, and in the world of police work, resentments had a way of turning deadly. Further into the hold, they encountered Dr. Amelia Croft, the Egyptologist retained by Harrington to authenticate his imports. In her mid-40s, Dr. Croft was a formidable woman, spectacles perched on a sharp nose, hair pulled into a severe bun, and a tweed suit that spoke of academia rather than adventure. Her hands...
Mallory's file on him was thick. Suspected smuggler, ties to the ring, a knife fight in Hamburg that left a man dead. Kraus hefted a crate with ease, his muscles straining under a threadbare shirt, but his mind plotted. Engländer, he muttered in accented English to a fellow worker. They think they own the river. Unseen by most, but noted by Mallory's sharp eye, was the faint outline of a concealed weapon beneath Kraus's jacket. Revenge simmered here. Mallory had raided one of his safe houses just weeks prior. As the group convened in the captain's dimly lit cabin, the fog outside pressed against the portholes like a living entity, swallowing the world beyond. Charts and maps cluttered the table, alongside a decanter of whiskey that Thorne offered around. "To steady the nerves," he said with a wink. Mallory declined, laying out his plan. "We'll inspect the suspicious crates now. Manifests show discrepancies, weights that don't match, origins falsified. Mrs. Mallory, you may wait here. Bates, with me. Doctor, your expertise will be invaluable. Captain, ensure no one leaves the ship." Eliza pouted but complied, sipping tea from a flask she'd brought. Dr. Croft adjusted her spectacles, hiding a flicker of alarm. Bates gripped his notepad tighter, ambition warring with duty. Little did they know this gathering was the prelude to tragedy. Outside, the Thames lapped hungrily at the hull, and in the distance a figure watched from the shadows, Julian Reed, perhaps, or Harrington himself. The seeds of motive were sown.
Eliza's infidelity, Bates's thwarted career, Croft's ruined reputation, Thorne's complicity in shady dealings, Krause's outright criminality, and the absent lord's greed. As Mallory led the way to the hold, lantern swinging, the ship seemed to hold its breath. The air grew thicker, not just with fog, but with unspoken threats. What secrets lay in those crates? And who among them would ensure they stayed buried? Whispers in the Mist. Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, and tonight we continue our
Lantern cast jagged shadows on the rough-hewn planks, illuminating the faces of his uneasy entourage. The fog outside had thickened, wrapping the ship in a cocoon of mist that muffled the world beyond, as if the Thames itself conspired to keep their discoveries hidden. Mallory, his sharp eyes scanning the crates, was in his element. His mustache twitched as he pried open the lid of a particularly heavy box, revealing a glimpse of gold within. A statuette of an Egyptian deity, Anubis, its jackal eyes gleaming with an almost accusatory stare. "Here," he announced, his voice steady but laced with triumph, "are the spoils of theft. These markings, hieroglyphs from a tomb near Luxor, looted last spring. I traced them to a fence in Alexandria, and now they're here, under Lord Harrington's nose." Captain Elias Thorne, puffing on his pipe, leaned closer, his scarred face betraying a flicker of unease. "That's bold talk, Inspector. Harrington's a powerful man. You sure you want to point fingers?" His tone was gruff, but there was a hint of calculation. Thorne's ship had carried these crates after all, and his own involvement, however peripheral, hung like a storm cloud. Mallory ignored the warning, his focus unwavering. Powerful or not, no one's above the law. These artifacts tie directly to a smuggling ring I've been tracking for months. Bates, make a note of the crate numbers. We'll cross-reference them with the manifests. Sergeant Harold Bates, standing stiffly nearby, scribbled in his notepad, his thick fingers gripping the pencil with unnecessary force. "Got it, sir," he muttered, though his eyes darted to the shadows, as if expecting trouble. Bates had been at Mallory's side for years, but the sting of his recent bypassed promotion lingered like a bruise. His ambition was no secret, and the manifests in his hands, some bearing Harrington's looping signature, felt like a map to his own redemption, or, perhaps, his ruin. Eliza Mallory, lingering near a stack of crates, adjusted her mink coat, her delicate fingers toying with a pearl necklace. Husband's suspicion. Eliza's note. When had she sent it, and why? The question hung unspoken, but its weight was palpable. Reed raised his hands, a disarming smile playing on his lips. "Just looking out for a friend, Inspector. Eliza mentioned you were poking around dangerous places. Thought I'd check in." His eyes flicked to Eliza, a silent exchange that didn't escape Mallory's notice. "Enough," Mallory snapped. "Stay out of the way, or I'll have you escorted off." He turned back to the crates, but the air had shifted, charged with unspoken accusations. Eliza's presence, once a mere annoyance, now felt like a chess piece moved by an unseen hand. Dr. Amelia Croft, the Egyptologist, knelt beside an open crate, her gloved hands carefully lifting a fragment of carved stone. Her spectacles glinted as she murmured, "This is extraordinary. Ramses II era, no doubt. To think such treasures are being smuggled like common contraband." Her voice held a scholar's reverence, but her quick glance at Mallory suggested more than academic interest. Years ago,
Mallory had exposed her role in a minor forgery scandal, a blemish that cost her a prestigious post at the British Museum. Was her presence here professional duty, or a chance to settle old scores? Victor Kraus, the German dockhand, worked silently nearby, his broad shoulders straining as he shifted crates. His scarred knuckles and the faint bulge of a concealed knife under his jacket marked him as more than he seemed. Mallory had him under surveillance for weeks, suspecting his ties to the smuggling ring. Kraus's blue eyes met the inspector's briefly, a flash of defiance before he muttered to a fellow worker in German, "Der Inspektor wird bald genug finden." The inspector will find out soon enough. His words were lost in the creak of the ship, but his intent was clear. Captain Thorne, growing impatient, checked his pocket watch. "Tide's turning in an hour, Mallory. My crew needs to unload or we'll miss the window. Whatever you're looking for, make it quick." Mallory nodded, his mind racing. The crates held more than artifacts. They were a map. Himself. Perhaps the promotion would be his. But the manifests, some pages were missing, torn out in haste. Had he overlooked them, or had someone tampered with his work? Dr. Croft, walking beside Thorne, slipped a small artifact, a scarab amulet, into her pocket. A scholar's curiosity? Or something more sinister? Her debts from failed expeditions were no secret, and the black market paid well for such trinkets. Kraus, meanwhile, slipped down a side ladder to the lower deck, his movements swift and silent. He had his own plans, and Mallory's presence was a threat that needed neutralizing. In the captain's cabin, a cramped space cluttered with charts and a battered desk, Mallory spread out the manifests. The lantern cast a warm glow, but the atmosphere was anything but cozy. "These discrepancies," he said, pointing to a list of weights, "suggest someone's been falsifying records. Harrington's name appears too often for coincidence." Thorne poured a round of whiskey, his hands steady, but his eyes wary. "Careful, Inspector. Accusing a lord is a dangerous game." Before Mallory could respond, a commotion erupted outside. A crewman shouted, "Man on the wharf! Saw someone skulking near the warehouse." The group rushed to the deck, only to find the fog too thick to see beyond a few yards. Was it Harrington? Or another player in this deadly game? Mallory, sensing time slipping away, made a decision. "I need to review these documents alone. Bates, secure the deck. No one leaves the ship." He retreated to a small cabin on the lower deck, a reinforced room with a single door and a porthole too small for escape. He locked the door behind him, the key secure in his pocket, and sat at a narrow table, poring over the manifests under the dim light of an oil lamp. Outside, the fog muffled all sound, save for the rhythmic slap of water against the hull. Eliza and Reed stood close, their whispers urgent. "If he finds out, Julian, we're finished," she hissed. Bates paced the deck, his scowl deepening as he overheard snippets of their conversation. Dr. Croft lingered near the crates, her mind racing. Demand all of Hercule Poirot's genius to unravel. Chapter 3. The Locked Cabin Horror. Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, and tonight we wade deeper into the murky waters of Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot Murder Mystery. If you're tuning in from a cozy armchair or perhaps a late-night train ride, let me know in the comments. Where are you joining us from? The fog of 1925 London thickens, and a gunshot has just shattered the stillness aboard the SS Meridian. With a slow, deliberate pace, let's unravel the chilling scene that awaits. Grab a cup of tea, dim the lights, and prepare for the impossible. The game, as they say, is afoot. The gunshot's echo lingered in the damp air of Chelsea Wharf, a sharp crack that seemed to ripple through the fog like a stone dropped into the Thames. On the deck of the SS Meridian, the group froze, their faces pale under the flickering gas lamps. Captain Elias Thorne, his pipe forgotten at his feet, was the first to move, his heavy boots thudding toward the lower deck. "Mallory!" he bellowed, his voice hoarse with alarm. "Inspector! Answer me!" Eliza Mallory, clutching Julian Reed's arm, let out a strangled cry. "Reginald! Oh God, no!" Her mink coat slipped from one shoulder as she stumbled forward, her eyes wide with panic. Or was it a performance? Reed steadied her, his own face taut, though his artist's hands trembled slightly, betraying more than his casual demeanor suggested. Sergeant Harold Bates, ever the dutiful officer, took charge with a barked command. "Nobody moves! Stay where you are, this is a crime scene now!" His broad frame pushed past the crew, who had gathered like moths to a flame, their whispers buzzing in the mist. Bates reached the locked door of the lower deck cabin, a sturdy oak barrier bolted from within, and pounded on it with a fist. "Sir! Inspector Mallory!" Silence answered, heavy and ominous. Dr. Amelia Croft, her spectacles fogging slow,
with no exit wound, a close-range shot. The air was thick with the acrid bite of gunpowder, and papers were scattered across the desk, some stained crimson. The lantern flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced across Mallory's lifeless form. But the room itself was an enigma. The door had been bolted from the inside, the key still in Mallory's pocket, untouched. The porthole, a mere foot in diameter, was sealed tight, its glass intact and too small for even a child to pass through. Most perplexing of all, no gun was found. No revolver, no pistol, no trace of the weapon that had ended Mallory's life. The cabin was a locked fortress, an impossible stage for murder. Eliza screamed, collapsing into Reed's arms, her sobs theatrical yet raw. "Reginald, my darling, no!" Reed murmured comforts, but his eyes flicked to the cabin, searching, perhaps for answers, perhaps for something else. Bates, his face ashen, stepped inside, careful not to disturb the scene. This doesn't make sense," he muttered, his usual scowl replaced by confusion. Door locked, no gun. How the devil did this happen? Thorne wiped sweat from his brow, his scar stark against his weathered skin. "Never seen anything like it in all my years at sea. It's like the shot came from nowhere." Dr. Croft adjusted her spectacles, peering into the cabin. "A tragedy," she said softly, but her tone held a clinical edge, as if she were analyzing a relic rather than a corpse. Kraus remained silent, his blue eyes fixed on the floor, though his fingers twitched, betraying his nerves. Word of the gunshot had reached the wharf, and soon the clatter of boots announced the arrival of local constables, their lanterns cutting through the fog. The scene was secured, the crew ordered to stay put, and a message sent to Scotland Yard. By dawn, as the first rays of a weak sun began to pierce the mist, a new figure arrived, a man whose presence commanded attention despite his diminutive stature. Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective with his egg-shaped head, immaculate suit, and meticulously waxed moustache, stepped onto the SS Meridian. Set up. No detail was spared. Poirot listened intently, his hands clasped behind his back, his mind already turning over the possibilities. Inside the cabin, Poirot's eyes swept the scene with surgical precision. The blood on the desk had begun to congeal, staining the manifests with their damning evidence of smuggling. The bullet wound suggested a small-caliber weapon, fired at close range, yet the absence of a gun was baffling.
He knelt by the porthole, noting a faint crack in the glass, not enough to break it, but curious. The dust on the floor was undisturbed, save for Mallory's own footprints. "The room, it tells a story," Poirot murmured, "but one with missing pages." He turned to Japp. "The key, it was in the victim's pocket, oui? And the door, bolted from within. No signs of tampering?" "None," Japp confirmed. "We checked. It's as if the killer vanished into thin air." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Vanished? No, the killer was here, and the killer left clues. We must only find them." He began his interviews, summoning each suspect to the captain's cabin, where the air was warmer, but no less tense. First was Eliza Mallory, her face pale beneath her makeup, her eyes red from crying, or so she claimed. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "I loved my husband, despite our difficulties. Julian Reed is merely a friend, nothing more. I was on deck when the shot rang out, with Julian. Ask anyone." Poirot nodded, his gaze piercing. "Madame, love is a powerful motive, but so is freedom. Your necklace, it is new, non? A gift, perhaps, from someone other than your husband." Eliza's hand flew to the pearls, her lips parting in surprise. Yes, a gift. But that's irrelevant." Next came Julian Reed, his bohemian charm undimmed despite the circumstances. "I was with Eliza the whole time, Monsieur Poirot," he said smoothly. "We were talking by the rail when we heard the shot. I barely knew Mallory. Why would I kill him?" Poirot's eyes narrowed.
No part in this. Finally, Victor Kraus, his German accent thick, spoke tersely. "I am just worker. I move crates. I hear shot, I come running. Why you ask me? I have no reason to kill."
Poirot dismissed them, his mind whirring.
"Motives, mes amis, they are plentiful. Love, jealousy, ambition, greed, revenge, secrets, all dance in this fog. But the method, this locked room, it is the key."
He returned to the cabin, examining the porthole again. The crack intrigued him, too small for a weapon, yet significant. A faint smudge of wax on the frame caught his eye, barely noticeable.
"Curieux," he whispered.
Outside, the tide was rising, the Thames lapping higher, as if eager to swallow the truth. The crew whispered among themselves. The constables stood guard, and the suspects avoided each other's eyes. Poirot stood on the deck, gazing into the lifting fog.
"The little grey cells, they begin to see," he said to Japp. "This is no ordinary murder. The impossible. It is merely a challenge." Chapter 4. Shadows of Suspicion.
Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, guiding you through the fog-laden streets of 1925 London in Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery. If you're nestled by a fire, or perhaps listening under the stars, tell me in the comments, where are you joining us from tonight? The gunshot in that locked cabin still echoes, and now Hercule Poirot steps into the fray, his little grey cells humming. Let's move slowly, deliberately, as the shadows deepen and suspicions sharpen. The Thames whispers secrets, and we're about to uncover a few. Onward we go. The dawn light struggled through the dissipating fog, casting a pale glow over Chelsea Wharf. The SS Meridian, once a bustling hive of activity, now stood somber, its crew hushed under the
Cells reveal its simplicity. Let us examine the stage more closely. He returned to the cabin, now cordoned off by police tape. The blood on the desk had dried, staining the manifests with their incriminating signatures. Poirot knelt by the porthole, his gloved fingers tracing the faint crack he'd noted earlier. Beside it, a smudge of wax, barely visible, but telling. "Curieux," he murmured. "Wax in such a place? Perhaps to seal a secret." Outside, he examined the deck near the porthole's exterior. A faint footprint in the mud, larger than expected, caught his eye. It was deep, as if someone had stood there for some time, but the porthole's position made it impossible for a shot to have been fired from outside, or so it seemed. Nearby, a scrap of fur clung to a splintered rail, its texture matching Eliza Mallory's mink coat. A clue? Or a deliberate plant? Poirot summoned the suspects again, this time on the open deck, where the rising sun cast long shadows. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "Inspector Mallory was killed in a room locked from within, yet someone among you knows how it was done. Let us explore the threads of this web." He began with the clues. The footprint suggested someone lingered outside, but its size didn't match any suspect precisely. Too large for Eliza or Dr. Croft, too small for Bates or Thorne. A red herring, perhaps? The fur was damning for Eliza, but she gasped, "My coat was on the deck all evening. Anyone could have torn it." Her eyes darted to Reed, who remained silent, his paint-stained hands shoved deep in his pockets. Sergeant Bates's notebook, Poirot noted, had a page missing, a jagged tear where a list of crate numbers should have been. "Sergeant," Poirot said, fixing him with a stare, "your notes are incomplete. Did you remove this page, or was it taken?" Bates flushed, his scowl returning. "I didn't touch it, sir. Someone must have rifled through it while I was securing the crew." His alibi, a barmaid at a nearby pub, was shaky. Her memory vague, her loyalty questionable. Julie Delayed unloading by an hour, a curious choice given the tide's urgency. "Captain," Poirot asked, "why the delay? Did it give someone time to act?" Thorne bristled. "My ship, my schedule. The fog slowed us, that's all." But a faint tremor in his voice betrayed unease, and Poirot recalled the scar on Thorne's face, a relic of a brawl with Mallory years ago, over a smuggling dispute. Victor Kraus, the German dockhand, had an alibi from a cousin among the crew, but familial loyalty weakened its credibility. Poirot found a cigarette butt near the warehouse, its tobacco distinctly German, Kraus's brand. "Herr Kraus," Poirot said, "you smoke, oui? And you were near the warehouse, despite claiming to be in the hold." Kraus's eyes narrowed. "I smoke, yeah. But I was working. Many men smoke here." His scarred knuckles flexed, a silent warning. A new twist emerged. A dockworker reported seeing Lord Victor Harrington's sleek Rolls-Royce near the wharf hours before the murder. Harrington, when summoned, arrived in a tailored suit, his silver hair impeccable. "Preposterous," he scoffed. "I was at my club in Mayfair all evening, dozens of witnesses. Mallory was a nuisance, but I'd hardly stoop to murder." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A nuisance, monsieur, or a threat to your empire of antiquities? Your car was seen, and your signature graces these manifests." Harrington's composure held, but his fingers tightened on his cane. "A misunderstanding. My agents handle shipments. I'm a collector, not a criminal." Poirot walked the wharf, noting the tide's rise. The water had crept higher, washing away potential evidence, footprints perhaps, or a discarded weapon. The buoy bell clanged irregularly.
a detail that nagged at him. Was it a signal, or merely the river's rhythm? He returned to the suspects, probing deeper. Eliza admitted her affair with Reed, but insisted Reginald and I were reconciling. I had no reason to harm him. Her tears seemed genuine, but Poirot noted her gloves, pristine. Yet the first scrap suggested contact with the rough deck. Reed's studio went like Mallory, he spat. They see a German, they assume guilt. Poirot gathered them on the deck, the river's murmur, a constant undertone. Each of you has a secret, he said, his voice soft but piercing. Love, ambition, greed, revenge. These are the threads. But the method, this locked room, it hides the truth. I will find it. A new clue surfaced. A faint rope mark on the deck near the porthole, as if something had been dragged. Poirot's mind raced. A rope, a pulley, a timed mechanism? The wax smudge hinted at a seal, perhaps to hold the porthole glass in place after tampering. But how to fire a shot and remove the gun? He questioned the crew further. A night watchman reported hearing a splash in the river minutes after the shot, something heavy hitting the water. A weapon discarded? The tide would have carried it away, but the buoy's irregular clanging suggested it might be tethered. Poirot's gray cells whirred. The crime is not just in the act, he told Japp, but in the illusion. Someone created this impossibility to confound us. But Hercule Poirot is not so easily confounded. As the suspects dispersed, their alibis shaky and motives glaring, Poirot stood by the rail, gazing into the Thames. The fog was lifting, but the mystery deepened. A torn piece of fabric, a missing page, a German cigarette, a cracked porthole, each a thread in a tapestry of deceit. The killer was among them, and the little gray cells were closing in. Chapter 5. Tides of Deception. Welcome back to Mystery Tailing Down. Welcome back to Mystery Tales Alexander, and we're plunging deeper into the fog-shrouded intrigue of Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery. Whether you're curled up by a hearth in Yorkshire or listening under the neon glow of a far-off city, let me know in the comments, where are you joining us from tonight? The Thames churns with secrets, and Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are hard at work unraveling the impossible
Scribbling notes nearby. This case, it is like the Thames itself, calm on the surface, but with currents that pull in unexpected directions. We must dive deeper. Japp sighed, his brow furrowed. Deeper? Poirot, we've got a locked room, no gun, and 6 suspects with motives stacked higher than those crates. Where do we even start? Poirot's eyes gleamed. We start with the contradictions, mon ami. The clues, they speak, but some lie. The little grey cells, they will separate truth from deception. The investigation took a new turn with a startling report from a night watchman stationed near the wharf's edge. I heard another shot, he told Poirot, his voice shaky. Not long after the first, maybe 10 minutes later, out by the warehouse. Thought it was a backfire at first, but now, his words trailed off, his eyes darting to the river. No second body had been found, no evidence of another crime. Yet the report sowed confusion. Was it a red herring, a misheard sound, or a deliberate act of misdirection? Poirot's first task was to revisit the crime scene. The locked cabin remained a puzzle, its bolted door and sealed porthole defying logic. He examined the wax smudge by the porthole again, now noticing a faint residue of oil, machine oil perhaps, not the kind used in lamps. This, he murmured, is no accident.
The rope mark on the deck outside, faint but unmistakable, suggested something had been dragged or lowered. A weapon, perhaps, or a tool to create the illusion of an impossible crime. A search of the ship yielded a breakthrough. Tucked behind a stack of crates in the hold, Poirot found a hidden diary belonging to Mallory. Its pages, written in his precise hand, revealed a shocking twist. Mallory had been blackmailing Lord Harrington. Harrington's payments to an offshore account in Zurich, the diary read. Confirm his role in the smuggling ring. Threatened exposure unless he cooperates. The diary also mentioned Dr. Croft's debts and a cryptic note about the German's knife. Was Mallory playing a dangerous game, extorting his suspects to force their hands? Poirot confronted Harrington in the captain's cabin, where the shot rang out. I swear it. Yet the fur scrap from her coat, found near the porthole, suggested she'd been closer to the cabin than she claimed. Poirot noted her gloves again, pristine, but with a faint oil stain, matching the porthole's residue. Julian Reed's studio, searched by Japp's men, revealed a small-caliber pistol hidden in a paint box, its barrel clean, but matching the type that could have killed Mallory. It's for protection, Reed protested. This part of Chelsea's rough. I've never fired it. Poirot raised an eyebrow. Protection, monsieur, or preparation. Sergeant Bates, under pressure, admitted his resentment over the missed promotion. Mallory was hard on me, he said, his voice gruff, but I'd never betray him. I was at the pub when the shot was fired. Ask the barmaid. The barmaid, however, was vague, her story shifting under scrutiny, and the missing notebook page loomed larger. Someone took it, Bates insisted, but his eyes avoided Poirot's. Dr. Amelia Croft's financial woes were laid bare by a telegram from her bank, confirming debts of thousands from failed expeditions. Mallory ruined me years ago, she admitted, her voice bitter. That forgery accusation, he twisted the truth to make me a scapegoat. But murder? I'm a scholar, not a killer. Yet the scarab amulet in her pocket suggested greed, or perhaps a deeper connection to the smuggled artifacts. Captain Thorne's past with Mallory surfaced. A brawl years ago over a smuggling tip that cost Thorne a lucrative contract. Old history, Thorne growled, but his ship's delayed unloading, logged as an hour late, hinted at opportunity. Fog slowed us, he repeated, though the weather reports showed clear skies earlier that evening. Victor Krause's brief attempt to flee the wharf was uncovered when a constable spotted him slipping toward the warehouse. Caught and questioned, he claimed, I fear police. In my country they take first, ask later. His knife, found hidden in his bunk, was sharp but clean. No blood, no gunpowder. Yet the German cigarette butt near the warehouse tied him to the scene. A new complication arose. A coded message scratched into the bottom of a crate discovered by a constable. Toward the gangplank. Constables tackled him, but not before he tossed something small into the river. A key, perhaps, or another clue. I know nothing, he shouted, but his panic spoke volumes. Poirot returned to the cabin, examining the porthole's crack again. The wax and oil suggested tampering, but how? A theory formed, a device, perhaps a rigged mechanism to fire the shot remotely. But the gun's absence remained the crux. The splash, the buoy, the rope mark. Could the weapon have been lowered into the river, tethered to a buoy to be retrieved later? He questioned the crew again. A young deckhand, nervous under Poirot's gaze, admitted seeing a shadow near the warehouse before the shot. A figure too tall for Eliza or Croft, too slim for Bates or Thorne. Harrington, perhaps. Or an accomplice? The second shot, if real, suggested a diversion, drawing attention from the true crime. Eliza's oil-stained gloves were tested. The residue matched the portholes, but she claimed, I brushed against crates in the hold. Reed's pistol was sent for analysis, but preliminary tests showed no recent firing. Bates's notebook, recovered from a crate, had the missing page, listing crate numbers tied to Harrington's warehouse. Croft's scarab was authentic, but its provenance linked to a stolen shipment Mallory had been tracking. Thorne's log was re-examined. A smudged entry hid a payment to an unknown VK. Kraus? The German's cousin, his alibi, was found drunk in a pub, his story unraveling. Harrington's Rolls-Royce was confirmed at the wharf by a second witness, a dock worker who saw it leave just before midnight. Poirot stood by the rail, the Thames swirling below. The tides, he mused to Jap, they carry away evidence, but also bring it back. The gun, it is not gone, it is hidden, waiting. The buoy clanged again, irregular, insistent. A signal or a marker? As the suspects watched each other warily, Poirot's mind pieced together the fragments, the wax, the rope, the splash, the coded message. The killer, he told Jap, is not just clever but bold. They defy us to see the truth. The net was tightening, but the river
Meridian lay heavy in the Thames, its decks alive with the quiet tension of a storm about to break. The midday sun, weak and filtered through clouds, cast a pale light over Chelsea Wharf, where constables maintained a vigilant watch. Hercule Poirot stood by the rail, his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the dock's grime, his cane resting lightly in his hand. His green eyes, sharp and unyielding, flickered across the suspects gathered nearby. Eliza Mallory, Julian Reed, Sergeant Harold Bates, Dr. Amelia Croft, Captain Elias Thorne, Victor Kraus, and Lord Victor Harrington. Each face was a mask, but cracks were forming, and Poirot's little gray cells were poised to exploit them. "Mon ami, Jap," Poirot said to Chief Inspector Jap, who stood beside him, his notebook worn from constant use. "We are at a crossroads. The clues, they multiply, but they also converge. The locked room, the missing gun, the wax, the rope, these are not chaos, but a design. We must see the pattern." Jap rubbed his temple, his patience fraying. "Pattern? Poirot, we've got a second shot no one can explain, a diary full of blackmail, and a ship full of liars. If there's a pattern, it's buried deep." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile beneath it. "Buried, oui, but not beyond reach. The little gray cells, they dig, and they find. Let us unravel these threads." Poirot returned to the locked cabin, the scene of Inspector Mallory's murder. The blood-stained manifests, the cracked porthole, the wax smudge, the absence of a gun, these were the pieces of an intricate puzzle. He knelt by the porthole, examining the wax again. The oil residue, identified as machine oil, suggested a mechanism, but what kind? A new clue emerged. A tiny splinter of wood, caught in the porthole's frame, bore traces of paint, green, like the hull of a small boat. A boat, perhaps? Poirot mused. Or a tool, painted to blend with the river? He stepped outside, where the rope mark on the deck near the porthole hinted at a device. Fired to confuse the timeline, or evidence of a second weapon? Poirot's mind raced, testing theories. He summoned the suspects to the captain's cabin, where the air was thick with suspicion. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice calm but piercing. "The web of this crime tightens. A rope, a hook, a splash. These suggest a method, but the motive, it is personal. Let us see who flinches." Eliza Mallory, her raven hair slightly disheveled, clutched her handbag tightly. The oil on her gloves, matching the porthole's residue, was damning. "Madame," Poirot said, "you claim you brushed against crates, but this oil is specific, machine oil, not cargo grease. Were you near the porthole, perhaps aiding another?" Eliza's eyes widened, her voice trembling. "I swear, Monsieur Poirot, I was on deck. I don't know how that oil got there." but her glance at Julian Reed betrayed fear or guilt. Reed, lounging with a forced nonchalance, faced scrutiny over his pistol. Tests confirmed it hadn't been fired, but Poirot pressed, "Monsieur, your art depicts Madame Mallory with intimacy. Did your passion lead you to remove an obstacle? Her husband?" Reed's smirk faltered. "I paint what I feel, Poirot. Eliza's my muse, not my motive. I was with her when the shot rang out." Sergeant Bates, his scowl deeper than ever, was confronted with a recovered notebook page, listing crate numbers tied to Harrington's warehouse. "Sergeant," Poirot said, "you claimed this page was stolen, yet it was found hidden. Were you protecting someone, or yourself?" Bates shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know how it got there. Someone's framing me, sir. I was loyal to Mallory, even if he didn't see it." His barmaid alibi crumbled further when she admitted to being bribed to lie. Dr. Amelia Croft's scarab amulet, linked to a stolen shipment, was a focal point. "Doctor," Poirot said, "your debts are great, and Mallory's exposure of your past forgery
Clean. Speaks of violence. Krause's jaw tightened. "I threw a cigarette, that's all. You police, you always blame the outsider." But his panic during the chase suggested deeper involvement. Lord Harrington, his aristocratic calm fraying, was pressed on the blackmail. "Monsieur," Poirot said, holding up Mallory's diary, "you paid to keep your smuggling quiet. Your car was here, despite your club alibi. Did you silence Mallory for good?" Harrington's cane tapped the floor sharply. "I paid no blackmail. My accounts are open. Check them. I left the club early, yes, but for a dinner, not murder." A second witness, however, placed his Rolls-Royce at the wharf at 11 p.m., not a dinner. A new clue emerged. A crewman, reluctant to speak, admitted seeing a small boat near the ship just after the shot, its occupant obscured by fog. The green paint on the porthole splinter matched the hulls of skiffs used by dockworkers. Had someone rowed to the porthole, fired, and fled? But the crack was too small for a gun barrel, and the wax suggested a different method. Poirot tested a theory. The rope and hook could have been used to pull a gun through the porthole after firing, with wax sealing the crack to maintain the illusion of a sealed room. The splash indicated the gun was dropped into the river, possibly tethered to the buoy for later retrieval. The second shot, he posited, was a decoy, fired from the warehouse to confuse the timeline. He confronted the suspects again, this time on the deck, where the buoy's clanging punctuated the silence. "One of you," Poirot said, "used the river to hide your crime. A boat, a rope, a shot in the night, these are your tools. But the motive, it burns in your heart." A sudden revelation struck. The coded message, tied at 1 a.m., delivered to V, aligned with the buoy's irregular clanging, which began precisely at 1 a.m. Poirot ordered a constable to check the buoy. After a tense wait, they retrieved a small weighted bag from the river, tied to the buoy's anchor line. Inside was a silenced pistol, its caliber matching Mallory's wound. The gun was wiped clean, but but one last twist awaited, hidden in the tides of Chelsea Wharf. Chapter 7. The Gathering Storm. Welcome back, Anna, to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, guiding you through the murky depths of 1925 London. In Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot Murder Mystery. Whether you're nestled in a quiet village or listening amidst the hum of a city, drop a note in the comments. Where are you joining us from tonight? The Thames churns with secrets, and Hercule Poirot's little grey cells are closing in on the truth behind the impossible murder of Inspector Mallory.
With a slow, deliberate pace, let's step into Chapter 7, where the storm gathers and accusations fly. The net is tightening. Brace yourselves for the unraveling. The SS Meridian stood silent under a leaden sky, its decks scoured by a chill wind that carried the tang of the Thames. The wharf at Chelsea buzzed with constables, their lanterns casting fleeting shadows as they guarded the crime scene. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate suit untouched by the dock's grime, stood near the gangplank, his cane tapping a steady rhythm. His green eyes, sharp as ever, swept over the suspects. Eliza Mallory, Julian Reed, Sergeant Harold Bates, Dr. Amelia Croft, Captain Elias Thorne, Victor Krause, and Lord Victor Harrington. The discovery of the waxed pistol, retrieved from the river, had shaken them all, and Poirot sensed the killer's mask slipping. "Mon ami, Jap," Poirot said to Chief Inspector Japp, who stood nearby, his face etched with exhaustion. "The pieces, they fall into place. The pistol, the wax, the rope. These are the tools of a cunning mind. But the heart of this crime, it is human. Passion, greed, fear. Someone among us could not resist." Japp clutched his notebook, his voice low. "That gun changes everything, Poirot. But we've still got no fingerprints, no clear motive tying one suspect to the act. And that second shot, still a mystery." Poirot's moustache twitched, a spark of triumph in his eyes. Patience' eyes burned with defiance, and Harrington's aristocratic calm wavered, his cane tapping nervously. Poirot held up the pistol, its grip still faintly waxy. "This was pulled from the Thames, hidden by a clever hand. The wax matches the porthole seal. The rope matches the mark on the deck. Someone fired through the porthole, then retrieved the weapon, sealing the crack to maintain the illusion of a locked room. But who?" A new clue had surfaced. Mallory's watch stopped at 11:47 p.m., 10 minutes before the first shot was reported. "Curieux," Poirot said, holding it aloft. "The watch. It was broken deliberately, to mislead us about the time of death. Why stage such a deception?" Bates stepped forward, his voice rough. "It wasn't me, Poirot. I was on deck, securing the crew. But Reed, he was skulking about with Mrs. Mallory. They've got secrets, those two." His finger jabbed toward Reed, who bristled. "Watch yourself, Bates," Reed snapped, his charm giving way to anger. "You're the one with the missing notebook page, hiding evidence. Maybe you wanted Mallory's job bad enough to kill for it." Eliza gasped, her hand flying to her pearls. "How dare you both? I loved Reginald, despite everything. I was nowhere near that cabin." But the oil on her gloves, matching the porthole's residue, told a different story. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Accusations, they are easy. Truth, it is harder. Let us examine the motives." He turned to Dr. Croft. "Madame, your debts, your ruined reputation. Mallory's accusations cost you dearly. Did you seek to end his interference?" Croft's voice was icy. "I'm a scholar, not a murderer. Yes, Mallory hurt me, but I was examining crates when the shot was fired. Check the crew's statements." Yet her scarab amulet, tied to the stolen shipment, suggested greed. Thorne was next. "Captain," Poirot said, "your log shows payments to VK. Victor Krause, perhaps? And your delay in unloading gave someone time to orchestrate this crime?" Harrington's cane struck the deck. "I paid no blackmail, and my car's presence is a coincidence. I'm a collector, not a criminal." Yet the waiter's testimony placed him at the wharf, and his offshore accounts were under scrutiny. Poirot paced, his mind weaving the clues: the waxed pistol, the rope mark, the cracked porthole,
The staged watch, the second shot. A theory solidified. The killer, he said, used the river to hide the gun, tethered to the buoy. The second shot was a diversion, fired from the warehouse to confuse the timeline. The watch was stopped to suggest an earlier death, giving the killer time to escape. A constable reported a new find, a small green-painted skiff hidden in a nearby dock, its hull matching the paint splinter from the porthole. A trace of wax was found inside, along with a single hair, dark, like Krause's. "Herr Krause," Poirot said. "This boat, it was near the ship. Did you row to the porthole, fire, and flee?" Krause's face paled, but he shook his head. "I was in the hold, not a boat. You have no proof?" Poirot turned to Eliza. "Madame, your gloves bear the same oil as the porthole. Were you in that skiff, assisting another?" Eliza's tears flowed, but her denial was firm. "I was on deck with Julian." Reed jumped in. "She's telling the truth, Poirot. We were together. Check the crew's statements." But the crew's accounts were muddled, some claiming to have seen Reed alone near the warehouse. Bates, desperate to deflect, pointed to Croft. "She's the one with the motive. Mallory ruined her. And that scarab, she's stealing, just like the smugglers." Croft snapped. "How dare you? I took it to protect it, not steal." Her debts, however, made her denial hollow. Thorne growled, "Enough of this. You're all pointing fingers, but I was with my crew. Ask them." Yet his crew's loyalty was suspect, and the log's discrepancies suggested complicity. Harrington remained aloof, but Poirot noted his cane's tip, scratched, as if it had caught on a rope. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "your cane, it has seen action, no? Perhaps near the porthole?" Harrington laughed coldly.
A watch was staged to confuse. He gathered them closer, the river's current swirling below. "The truth," he said, "is in the details. The oil, the wax, the rope, the boat, these are not random. One of you, or more, planned this with care, but Hercule Poirot sees through your illusion." A tense silence followed, broken only by the lapping of the Thames. Eliza's sobs grew quieter. Reed's hands clenched. Bates's scowl wavered. Croft's spectacles fogged. Thorne's pipe trembled. Krause's eyes darted. And Harrington's cane stilled. The storm was here, and the truth was breaking through. Hidden Currents. Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, guiding you through the fog-laden twists of 1925 London in Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery. Whether you're tucked away in a quiet cottage or listening amidst the bustle of a far-off city, drop a note in the comments. Where are you joining us from tonight? The Thames swirls with secrets, and Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are closing in on the truth behind the impossible murder. With a slow, deliberate pace, let's dive into Chapter 8, where hidden currents pull us closer to the heart of the mystery. Settle in, for the tide is turning. The SS Meridian creaked under the weight of its secrets. Its decks bathed in the pale light of a late afternoon sun that struggled through the clouds. Chelsea Wharf was alive with the hum of investigation. Constables patrolled the perimeter, dockworkers whispered rumors, and the river lapped hungrily at the hull, as if eager to swallow the truth. Hercule Poirot stood near the ship's bow, his immaculate suit a beacon of order amidst the chaos, his cane tapping softly as he gazed at the suspects. Eliza Mallory, Julian Reed, Sergeant Harold Bates, Dr. Amelia Croft, Captain Elias Thorne, Victor Krause, and Lord Victor Harrington. The waxed pistol, retrieved from the Thames, had tightened the net. But the killer's identity remained elusive, hidden in the currents of porthole. Noting the oil residue, machine oil, not lamp oil, and the faint wax seal. A new detail caught his eye.
A tiny scratch on the porthole's inner frame, angled as if something narrow had been inserted. A tool, perhaps, Poirot murmured, to manipulate the glass or the shot itself. Outside, the rope mark on the deck and the green-painted skiff found nearby suggested a river-based escape for the weapon. The buoy's irregular clanging, timed to 1 a.m., aligned with the coded message, tied at 1 a.m., delivered to V. The second shot, reported by the watchman, remained a puzzle, but a constable's find in the warehouse, a spent cartridge matching the murder weapon's caliber, hinted at a deliberate misdirection. Poirot's investigation deepened with a re-examination of Mallory's diary. Beyond the blackmail of Harrington, it mentioned Dr. Croft's forgery scandal in greater detail. Croft falsified provenance for a 19th dynasty statuette, exposed by my inquiry. She blames me for her ruin. A note about Kraus read, "His knife is not his only weapon. Check his contacts in Hamburg." This suggested Mallory was closer to dismantling the smuggling ring than anyone realized, making him a target for multiple players. Poirot confronted Dr. Croft in the captain's cabin, her spectacles glinting in the dim light. "Madame," he said, holding up the diary, "Mallory's exposure of your forgery cost you your career. Your debts drive you to the black market. Did you kill to silence him?" Croft's hands trembled, but her voice was sharp. "I've admitted my mistake, Monsieur Poirot. That forgery was a youthful error, and Mallory exaggerated it. I was in the hold, verifying artifacts when he died. I had no reason to kill. Yet her scarab amulet, tied to the stolen shipment, and her debts painted a darker picture. Victor Kraus was next, his blue eyes cold as the Thames. "Herr Kraus," Poirot said, "your knife found in your bunk is clean, but your past is not. Mallory knew of your smuggling ties in Hamburg. Did you use the skiff to fire through the porthole?" Kraus's scarred knuckles tightened. "I'm no killer. Mallory hounded me because of my..."
Smirk returned, strained. "My paintings are my confession, Poirot, not my crime. I was with Eliza, ask the crew." But conflicting crew statements placed him near the warehouse at one point. Sergeant Bates, his scowl etched deep, was questioned about the notebook page, now recovered. "Sergeant," Poirot said, "you hid evidence tied to Harrington's crates. Were you protecting him or yourself?" Bates flushed, his voice rough. "I didn't hide it. Someone planted it. I was loyal to Mallory, even if he didn't trust me." His barmaid alibi was fully discredited, leaving him exposed. Captain Thorne's log with its payment to VK drew Poirot's focus. "Captain," he said, "you delayed unloading, giving time for murder. Was VK your accomplice?" Thorne's scar twitched. "A clerical error, nothing more. I don't deal with dockhands directly." Yet, the clear weather undermined his fog excuse, and his past brawl with Mallory hinted at a grudge. Lord Harrington, his silver hair unruffled, faced the blackmail evidence. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "Mallory's diary proves you paid to keep your smuggling quiet. Your car was here. Did you orchestrate this?" Harrington's cane tapped sharply. "I paid nothing. My accounts are open. I was at a dinner, not the wharf." But the second witness confirmed his Rolls-Royce's presence, and his scratched cane suggested action. A new clue emerged. A dockworker found a small periscope-like device hidden in a crate near the warehouse, its lens scratched but functional. "This," Poirot said to Japp, "explains the shot's precision. A periscope, used through the porthole's crack, allowed the killer to aim without entering. The wax sealed the crack post-shot. The rope and hook retrieved the gun, and the skiff carried the killer away. The second shot, from the warehouse, masked the true timing, and the staged watch, stocked at 11:47 p.m., further muddled the timeline. Poirot tested his theory.
The periscope's angle matched the bullet's trajectory, and the wax on the pistol. Harrington. Your money funded this. Krause and Harrington remained silent, their eyes locked on Poirot. A final twist. A crewman admitted seeing a figure in a hooded coat near the skiff before the shot, too tall for Eliza or Croft, too slim for Bates or Thorne. Harrington or Krause, or a new player? The periscope bore a faint fingerprint, too smudged to identify, but suggesting carelessness. Poirot's gray cells hummed. The currents, he told Japp. They carry the truth to us. The periscope, the wax, the skiff, these are the killer's tools. But the heart, love, greed, revenge, it drives them. The net was tight, but one last revelation awaited, hidden in the river's depths. Chapter 9. The Net Closes. Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, guiding you through the shadowy depths of 1925 London in Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery. Whether you're listening from a wind-swept moor or a bustling urban street, let me know in the comments, where are you joining us from tonight? The Thames churns with secrets, and Hercule Poirot's little gray cells are poised to unravel the final threads of this impossible murder. With a slow, deliberate pace, let's dive into Chapter 9, where the net closes and the truth begins to surface. Brace yourselves. The storm is breaking. The SS Meridian stood resolute against the Thames, its weathered hull a silent witness to the drama unfolding on its decks. The late afternoon light cast long shadows over Chelsea Wharf, where constables maintained a vigilant cordon, their lanterns flickering as dusk approached. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate suit, a stark contrast to the dock's grime, stood at the ship's stern, his cane resting lightly in his hand. His green eyes, sharp and unyielding, surveyed the suspects. Eliza Mallory, Julian Reed, Sergeant Harold Bates, Dr. Amelia Croft, Captain Elias Thorne, Victor Krause, and Lord Victor Harrington. The waxed pistol, the periscope, the green-painted skiff, and the coded message had enigma at the heart of the mystery. The blood-stained manifests, the cracked porthole with its wax and oil residue, the staged watch stopped at 11:47 p.m., all pointed to a carefully orchestrated crime. The periscope's discovery had been a breakthrough, its scratched lens suggesting it was used to aim through the porthole's crack, allowing a shot without entering the room. The waxed cord and hook found in the river explained the gun's disappearance, pulled through the porthole and tethered to the buoy for later retrieval. But the second shot, fired from the warehouse, and the hooded figure near the skiff remained elusive pieces. A new clue surfaced. A constable searching the warehouse found a torn piece of paper tucked inside a crate bearing a partial map of the wharf with an X marked near the buoy. The handwriting matched Mallory's diary, suggesting he'd mapped a rendezvous point, perhaps to confront the smuggler V. The coded message, tied at 1 a.m., deliver to V, took on new weight. Was V Victor Krause, or did it point to another? Poirot gathered the suspects in the captain's cabin, where the air was thick with tension. The river's murmur outside seemed to echo their unease. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his voice calm but piercing. The net closes. The periscope allowed the shot, the wax sealed the illusion, the skiff carried the killer. But the truth lies in your secrets. One of you or more wove this tapestry of deceit. He started with Eliza Mallory, her face pale, her hands clutching her pearls. Madame, Poirot said, your gloves bear the oil of the porthole. Your coat's fur was found nearby. Were you in the skiff, aiding the killer to free yourself from a failing marriage? Eliza's tears spilled, her voice trembling. I loved Reginald, despite our troubles. I was on deck with Julian, I swear it. The oil, the fur, someone framed me. But her glance at Reed, fleeting and fearful, suggested more. Julian Reed, his bohemian charm fraying, faced scrutiny over his pistol. Monsieur, Poirot said, your weapon matches the murder's caliber, though her spectacles, fogging, faced the diary's accusations. Madame, Poirot said, Mallory ruined you with his forgery exposé. Your debts tied you to the smuggled artifacts. Did you shoot to end his threat? Croft's voice was sharp. I'm no killer. I took the scarab to protect it, not to profit. I was in the hold, not the cabin. But her trembling hands and the scarab's stolen provenance undermined her claim. Captain Thorne's log, with its payment to VK, was a focal point. Captain, Poirot said, you delayed unloading, giving time for murder. Was VK your accomplice in this scheme? Thorne's scar twitched, his voice gruff. A clerical error, nothing more. I don't deal with dockhands. Mallory and I had history, but I didn't kill him. The clear weather, however, debunked his fog excuse, and his past grudge loomed large. Victor Krauss, his blue eyes defiant, faced the skiff's evidence. Herr Krauss, Poirot said. The dark hair in the skiff, the cigarette butt, the coded message. They point to you. Did you fire the shot to protect your smuggling? Krauss spat. Mallory targeted me because I'm German. I was in the hold, not a boat. That message means nothing. But his attempted flight and the V in the code suggested otherwise. Lord Harrington, his silver hair gleaming, was pressed on the blackmail. Monsieur, Poirot said, Mallory's diary proves your payments. Your car was here. Your cane scratched. Did you orchestrate this murder? Harrington's cane struck the floor. I paid no blackmail. My car's presence is a coincidence. I'm a collector, not a killer. Yet the waiter's testimony and the scratched cane tied him to the wharf. A breakthrough came when a diver, sent to search the river near the buoy, found a small metal box, waxed and sealed, containing a second periscope lens, cleaner than the first, suggesting a backup. This, Poirot said to Japp. Eliza sobbed. I'm innocent. Croft pointed to Krauss. He's the smuggler. Thorne growled at Harrington. Your money funded this. Krauss and Harrington exchanged a glance, silent but charged. A final clue. A constable found a torn glove in the skiff, its oil residue matching Eliza's. Madame, Poirot said, this glove, it is yours. You were in the skiff, no? Eliza collapsed, sobbing. I didn't kill him, I swear. Poirot's grey cells whirred. The periscope, the wax, the skiff, the second shot, all pointed to a conspiracy. Was it one killer or two? The hooded figure's description, tall and slim, ruled out Eliza and Croft, leaving Reed, Krauss, or Harrington. The scratched cane, the dark hair, the coded V, the truth was near. The net closes, Poirot told Japp, his voice low. The river has spoken, and the killer cannot hide. One final thread, and the tapestry is complete. The suspects watched, their masks crumbling, as the Thames whispered its final secrets. Chapter 10. The Truth Beneath the Tides. Welcome back to Mystery Tales. I'm your host, Alexander, guiding you through the fog-drenched shadows of 1925 London in Death of Inspector Mallory at Chelsea Wharf, a Hercule Poirot Murder Mystery. Whether you're listening from a cozy fireside in Dublin or a moonlit balcony across the seas, drop a note in the comments. Where are you joining us from tonight? The Thames pulses with secrets, and Hercule Poirot's little grey cells are ready to unveil the truth behind the impossible murder of Inspector Mallory. With a slow, deliberate pace, let's plunge into Chapter 10, where the tides part and the killer is revealed. Hold tight, the storm breaks now. The SS Meridian loomed against the darkening sky, its decks quiet save for the creak of wood and the restless lapping of the Thames. Chelsea Wharf was a hive of tension, with constables guarding the perimeter and the river whispering secrets only it knew. Hercule Poirot stood at the ship's bow, his immaculate suit untouched by the dock's grime, his cane poised like
Method. That locked room. It's still impossible. Poirot's moustache twitched, a triumphant smile beneath it. Impossible? Non, Jappe. The impossible is merely a challenge for Hercule Poirot. Let us reveal the truth. Poirot gathered the suspects on the deck, the Thames swirling below, its currents mirroring the undercurrents of deceit. The boy bobbed silently, its earlier clanging a key to the mystery's timing. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his voice soft but commanding. Inspector Mallory was killed in a locked cabin. A shot fired through a cracked porthole, the gun spirited away by a waxed cord and hidden in the river. A periscope ensured precision. A second shot confused the timeline, and a staged watch misled us. But the truth, it shines through. He held up the waxed pistol, its grip gleaming in the fading light. This weapon, retrieved from the Thames, was fired through the porthole's crack, sealed with wax to maintain the illusion of a locked room. A skiff carried the killer, a periscope guided the shot, and a rope retrieved the gun. But who wielded these tools? A final clue had emerged. A constable, searching the skiff, found a hidden compartment containing a small vial of machine oil, its cap engraved with the initials VK. The oil matched the residue on Eliza's gloves and the porthole. Poirot's eyes gleamed. This vial, it names its owner. But let us unravel the motives first. He turned to Eliza Mallory, her face pale, her hands trembling. Madame, your gloves bear the oil. Your coat's fur was found near the porthole. Your marriage was crumbling, your heart drawn to Monsieur Reed. Did you aid the killer to be free? Eliza's voice broke, tears streaming. I loved Reginald, despite everything. I was on deck with Julian, I swear it. Someone framed me with that oil, that fur. But her glance at Reed, charged with fear, suggested complicity. Julian Reed, his bohemian air frayed, faced the pistol's shadow. Monsieur, Poirot said, your weapon matches the murder's caliber, though unfired. Your paintings reveal a passion for Madame Mallory. Did you kill to claim her? Reed's voice was tight. Your debts tied you to the smuggled artifacts. Did you shoot to silence him? Croft's voice was sharp. I'm a scholar, not a killer. I took the scarab to verify it, not to profit. I was in the hold. But her trembling hands and the scarab's stolen provenance suggested greed. Captain Thorne's log with its payment to VK was scrutinized. Captain, Poirot said, you delayed unloading, giving time for murder. Was VK your accomplice? Thorne's scar twitched, his voice gruff. A clerical error. I don't deal with dockhands. Mallory and I had history, but I didn't kill him. The clear weather and his grudge with Mallory cast doubt. Victor Kraus, his blue eyes defiant, faced the skiff's evidence. Herr Kraus, Poirot said, the vial's initials, VK, name you. The dark hair, the cigarette butt, the coded message, they point to you. Did you fire the shot? Kraus spat. Mallory hounded me for my blood, not my deeds. That vial's not mine. Anyone could have used it. But his flight and the V in the code
tied him tightly to the crime. Lord Harrington, his silver hair gleaming, was pressed on the blackmail. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "Mallory's diary proves your payments. Your car was here, your cane scratched. Did you orchestrate this?" Harrington's cane struck the deck. "I paid no blackmail. My car's presence is a coincidence. I'm a collector." But the waiter's testimony and the scratched cane linked him to the wharf. Poirot paced, his mind weaving the final threads. "The method," he said, "is clear. The killer rowed the skiff to the porthole, used a periscope to aim, fired the shot, and retrieved the gun with a waxed cord. The wax sealed the crack. The second shot from the warehouse confused the timeline, and the watch was stopped to mislead. But the motive, this is the key." He revealed his theory. The coded message, tied at 1 a.m., delivered to V, pointed to Victor Kraus, whose initials matched the vial. The dark hair in the skiff, the cigarette butt, and his Hamburg
betrayed him. He bolted, but constables seized him. Poirot faced the group. Eliza held the periscope. Kraus fired. Reed planned the diversion. A conspiracy, driven by love and greed. The scratched cane, Poirot revealed, was a red herring. Harrington's presence was incidental, his smuggling separate. Bates, Croft, and Thorne, though guilty of secrets, were not killers. The truth emerged. Eliza, desperate to escape her marriage, aided Reed, who enlisted Kraus for the shot. The skiff, periscope, and waxed cord created the locked room illusion, with the second shot masking the timeline. The Thames had hidden the gun, but not the truth. Japp clapped Poirot's shoulder. "You've done it again, Poirot. A devil of a case." Poirot smiled. "The little grey cells, Japp. They never fail."